Hello and welcome to Karen's Medical Corner. I'm Karen O'Day. I'm a certified family nurse practitioner and a certified nurse midwife, owner and operator of EverCare Family Practice in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My specialty is family practice, bioidentical hormone replacement for men and women, as well as aesthetics. I'd like to welcome you to the podcast today and thank you for taking time out of your day to have a listen. Today I'm going to be talking about something that has come to the forefront of my practice and personal life most recently, which is death with dignity. And in discussing that, also I have questions as to what the point is, meaning what's the point of life? And I want to preface this talk a little bit first regarding personal experience that has recently happened, as well as professional experiences. Last year, I started a concierge family practice where I take care of and offer 24-hour services to my patients. And initially, I had thought I was going to have the ability to take care of about 300 patients and do this without difficulty. However, after my first 100 patients, I determined that 300 was not reasonable and limited the practice to 100. Now, in this practice of the concierge aspect, most of my patients, not all of them, have significant health conditions, and the majority of them have different types of cancer. Most of them that have cancer are stage 4 terminal cancers. And so over the past year, I've been approached and have had to have patients who've made decisions to do death with dignity and who have decided not to do that and who have actually fought tooth and nail for whatever time they have remaining. In my personal life, my dad has had leukemia for 21 years this year, and he has decided that his treatment is to fight tooth and nail, and he has done really well. He had some issues over the past year with difficulty with chemotherapy, and now he seems to be recovering really well. I respect everybody's own personal decision to either treat their cancers, not treat their cancers, have life until the very end, or to have death with dignity. However, I've had a lot of increase in stress over the past month with one of my dear friends who's 81 years old being diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. And he called me on the phone to let me know that he had stage 4 liver cancer. And we were talking, and he said he had decided not to treat the cancer and asked me how I felt about it. And I said, well, I think it's your choice. I don't know how I would respond if I had that diagnosis at 81 years of age, and I think you should make your own choice, because I am very proactive when it comes to people having the ability to make their own healthcare decision. So he was transferred to a rehabilitation center, and then I received a phone call from his brother informing me that he had decided to do death with dignity and was being transferred back to Santa Fe. So I've made several visits to my friend over the past couple of weeks, and part of our discussion has been on the death with dignity. I asked him, I said, are you suffering? Are you hurting? Are you in pain? And he said, no. And I said, okay. I said, well, can you just explain to me why you've decided to do it now? Because he's planning on doing this with this week, the week before Christmas. And not that it matters what week it is, but it's going to be this week at some point. And I said, he said, are you upset with me because I've chosen to do this? And I said, no, I just don't understand why you're choosing to do it if you're not having any pain and you're not suffering. And he said to me, well, Karen, what's the point? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, what's the point of life? And I just looked at him and I said initially, well, I don't know. I said, the point to me is for human interaction and having that contact and the relationships and learning from people and helping people. And he said, well, I just don't see the point. And so I've been thinking about that almost nonstop over the past several days. What is the point of life? And I've asked several people that are important to me. I asked because my dad is so much different on the opposite end of the spectrum. I said, well, Dad, what's the point of life? And in his electrical engineering response, he said, continuation of the species. And I said, okay, well, that's a good point. I said, but you and I both, everybody that lives in this house, are past the point of being able to continue the species. So does that mean we have no point in life? And he said, no. And I said, okay, so what's the point? And he didn't really have a good answer. He started talking about doing things that are fun and living life to the fullest. And I said, well, that's great. Those are activities. But again, what's the point? And so my mom, who is a retired teacher, she said, educating the next generation. And my husband said that too. And I said, yeah, that's a good point of life. And I said, I'll take that and think on it a while. And I asked my daughter what she thought the point of life was, and she is a student getting her master's degree in counseling, and she said it was to make meaningful memories and experience love and human connection and reflections. And I thought, that's a good point, I guess. And then her partner said the point of life to her was to have adventure. You never know what's going to happen, and to have take life with gratitude. And I said, well, I think that's a good definition for her. To me, that was more of activities, and maybe activities are the point of life. I don't know. And I asked another person, I said, just give me the first thought that comes to your mind on the point of life. And he said, I don't know. And I said, I think that's pretty valid, because that was my first thought. I don't know. I think that the point of life for me a lot of times is in search of the point of life. And for me, I think that the human connection is very important in life. And I'm constantly looking for serenity and just finding peace. And for me, that's the point. And having the human connection and helping people is very important to me and helps give me a feeling of purpose. But in looking at the purpose, again, it brings me back to what is the point. And I think everybody's point is different. And I was talking to my friend last night, and he said, well, have you figured out the point? And I said, no. I said, I think to me, the point is, again, being in search of the point and doing things that help me figure out what's important in life and why we're here and the human connection. And I said, but if we're talking about it maybe in a spiritual aspect, what about possible predetermination and the ripple effect? I said, you're not suffering, your mind is still good. And what happens if you're supposed to be here to help somebody else, to give them some sort of enlightenment, and you end your life, and then that person never has the ability to receive that knowledge that you have, and it has a ripple effect down on the rest of humanity. Now, that's a far stretch, but my friend and I, one of our main interactions that we've had over many years is to discuss spirituality and religion, because we like to look at things in kind of a different way with open minds and discuss what we think things mean. And so the point of this podcast today is that not to teach anybody anything or give a medical opinion on anything, but to think about what is the point of life. And I would like to ask anybody who listens to this podcast to please share with me what your point of life is. I really want to know. You could text it to me at my office number, 505-780-8301. You could email it to me at evercarefamilypractice.com. You could send it to me on Instagram at o'day.karen, or on Facebook, EverCare Family Practice, or on our website, www.evercarefamilypractice.com. And I would really love to know what people believe the point is, because in reflecting back on my last conversation with my friend, that's something that, we've talked about a lot, and he's kind of lost that hope in what is the point. And it makes me sad, because I do realize that he's terminally ill and he has the right in this state to decide if he lives or has death with dignity. The Elizabeth Whitfield Act, which went into effect on June 18th, 2021, gives people over the age of 18 the right to have a medical provider prescribe them a cocktail of medication that is lethal, and if they have the mental capacity to make that decision, they're allowed to do so. And I am not opposed to that act. I'm just selfish in wanting my friend not to do it at this point, but it's his choice. And I'm not. He asked if I was upset, and I said no. I said, it's your choice. I'm just sad because I'm selfish. And so I think that death with dignity has been a big fight in the legislature in many different states. And again, my whole philosophy on individual life is that we have autonomy to make our own decisions. It might not be the decision I would make, and it does make me very sad, but I'm trying to determine, and I'm going to see him again on Monday, on what is the point. So I would love feedback, and it's really important to me. So this podcast is fairly short today. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I haven't been sleeping well over the past week in trying to get a mental grip on what's happening with my friend, because my thought process is that death with dignity, and this is only my opinion, is when somebody has a terminal illness and they're beginning to have significant symptoms that cause them to lose the quality of their life, and that they should have the right to decide. I haven't had to deal with mentally the idea of somebody who is diagnosed with terminally ill cancer, and they're not suffering, they're not having any symptoms, but they decide to terminate at that point their life. So it's an ethical and spiritual dilemma for me. So I would love to have anybody's response. So please share your thoughts with me. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining the podcast today. This podcast is dedicated to my dear, sweet friend and mentor, Carl. He's